Hello and welcome to another session of the Leadership Talk series by IIT Education. Today we have the privilege of hosting Professor M Jagadesh Kumar, a distinguished academician and a thought leader in the field of education. Professor Kumar holds a key position as a chairman of the University Grants Commission and serves as the Professor of Electrical Engineering in IIT Delhi. His work has been published extensively in the form of at least 3 books, 4 book chapters, and more than 250 publications in reputed journals and conferences. With a wealth of experience and expertise, he is well equipped to shed light on various aspects of India's changing education landscape and its journey towards becoming a developed nation by 2047, which is also the theme of our interaction with Professor Kumar.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Sir, with India's ambitious goal of becoming a developed country by 2047, could you provide us some insights into the priorities we should have to, set to achieve this vision, and also how do you see higher education institutions evolving to, contribute to this transformative journey?
Right. First of all, thank you for inviting me to be part of this discussion. If you look at the G20 presidency of India last year, India has emerged as a leader in the world in bringing consensus on various issues which have come up as challenges to the global community. And today, what India does, what India says, these things matter across the globe. Why is it happening? It's happening because in India today, we are focusing on creating a world-class education system, in building public infrastructure, and using digital technology to provide different kinds of services to the people. And we have just brought nearly 25 crores of people out of poverty. And not only that, even if you look at the scientific fields, the way our space technology is evolving, whether it is the lunar mission or putting our satellites for weather monitoring, or the Chandrayaan moon lander on South Pole. There are several such scientific innovations that are taking place. And especially if you look at the digital public infrastructure that India has built, it has become a kind of role model for the rest of the world on how we can leverage the technology to transform the lives of the people. Yes. Today, if you look at the online financial transactions, nearly 40% of the online transactions, global online transactions, they take place from within India. Right. So that is the kind of transformation that we are bringing. But if you look at globally also, the role India is playing in terms of providing leadership in resolving disputes, in resolving conflicts, India is seen as a global leader. Now, within India, we have so much of human resources because India has the largest number of youth.
Correct.
Nearly 50% of our population is below 25 years of age. Right. So therefore, we have a huge benefit in terms of making our country a fully developed country in another 20-25 years by 2047. And if you want to transform our country into this developed nation, there are four kinds of people on whom we have to focus. One, as I mentioned, the youth, and then the women who play a key role in the development of our country, and the farmers and the poor. So we need to empower all these four sections of our society, and India is doing that today.
Right.
And one of the ways of doing that is by transforming our higher education, our school education. So there are two components here. One, making India stronger, both in terms of social, economic, and cultural aspects, and leading the world by using some of the models that we are using within our country as an example for the rest of the world. For example, if you look at the sustainable development or reducing the carbon footprint in the world, India is taking so many steps which will pave the way for achieving these goals, and which is a major concern for the global community.
Correct.
So, if you want to do that, education plays a key role. And the transformation of this education now it is possible in India through the National Education Policy 2020.
Correct.
And I would like to just add here, why are we talking so much about National Education Policy 2020? The reason is that for too many years since independence, our educational system got deep rooted in the conventional, very conservative way of providing education to our aspirational students. That is one of the problems, and that's the reason why we have brought the NEP 2020. And it is not only being discussed and being implemented in India today. Recently in G20, when the group of educational ministers, when they came up with the 4 resolutions, one of them is strengthening the foundational literacy and numeracy,
Correct.
leveraging digital technology in our education, and making our education more meaningful in the lives of the future workforce, and more cross-border collaborations in higher education, research, and innovation. Now, when G20 represents almost 80% of the global population, and the education ministers of G20 come with these 4 resolutions, which resonate with the central objectives of NEP 2020, now you can see that NEP 2020 is not only relevant to our country, but it is being talked and it resonates with the ideas of the global community. So therefore, bringing transformation in our school as well as higher education system is our top priority now, because it is these people, youngsters, who come out of these institutions with that scientific and innovative bent of mind. They are the ones who will lead the transformation of our country.
Right, sir. So, in the quest for development, technology, as you said, it is going to play a vital role.
Right.
So, how do you see the role of emerging technologies in facilitating India's growth, and which specific technologies do you believe are, are most effective for addressing India's, local challenges?
Right. Right.
Because it's important to, to innovate for the needs of our own country. So, which of these technologies like AI, we are seeing so many technologies, coming up. And so, how do you see it?
Right. First, we need to see what are our strengths in different emerging areas, build on those strengths. And second, we also need to see in which areas we need to strengthen ourselves so that we don't lag behind. So if I take the first one, for example, the digital public infrastructure that we have built in our country is our strength today.
Correct, sir.
Right? And using this, we are minimizing the human interface so that you can reach out to the last person in the queue and provide all kinds of services, right? And then we also need to look at the energy challenges that we have as a global community. Right. Because the dependence on the conventional fuels that we are using, that will make us dependent on other countries. And if you look at the COVID period, or if you look at what is happening in the Red Sea, the
Right,
attacks
right.
on the ships that are going on. So there can always be supply chain disruptions when you depend on other countries. So can we minimize our dependence on importing these fuels from other countries? So that is one area in which our educational institutions, research institutions, and the government are focusing on. For example, by developing solar energy, wind energy, bioenergy, we can reduce our dependence on other countries. And when you don't import that, our resources, external, our funds need not be spent outside the country to buy those kind of products from other countries. So this is one. The other one is that, the kind of pandemics that came, COVID, you never know which kind of pandemics will come, how it will affect our general public health. Right. Therefore, India is focusing on developing the capability to produce vaccines in a shorter duration, right? So, space technology is another area. With the establishment of InSpace, which is a parallel organization within the space domain, we are now encouraging people to entrepreneurship in space technology, because today data is becoming everything. If you have data, you can use that data to do many things. And India, considering the huge amount of people that we have, we generate a lot of data. It can be data in the medical field. It can be data in the transport area. It can be data in agricultural field. So it can be data in the educational field. We generate a lot of this data. Right. Other countries may not have this kind of data generation capability. So data is becoming everything today. So we are now working on, for example, artificial intelligence, data sciences, machine learning, so that this data can be used effectively to study patterns in different domains and come up with policy interventions to strengthen that particular domain. For example, we are now building on APAR IDs for all students in the education system. APAR, APAAR, this is Automated Permanent Academic Account Registry. So every student will have a unique APAR ID, and as the students enter the school system, they will be assigned this APAR ID, and as they progress in their educational journey, move from school to college, college to university, and even to the employment, this APAR ID can be used to study their progress in their education. Now, this APAR ID and the educational achievements of the students will be put in a platform called One Nation, One Data platform. And it's a kind of registry, because different state governments, different school education boards, educational institutions, they will keep putting this data there. They will have access to their independent data, their own data, but at a national level, we will have access to data across all schools, school boards, educational institutions, and then we can do the data analytics and study the patterns. Are there any districts where some interventions had to be introduced? Or are there any disciplines where policy intervention has to be introduced? So you can study a lot of these patterns. So similarly, agriculture, for example. In agriculture, can we do research in our educational institutions to reduce the dependency of our farmers on fertilizers, for example?
Right, sir.
Or can we diversify our crops instead of depending only on wheat, rice? Can we come up with other kinds of diversification of crops, help the farmers there in order to strengthen their own economic activities, introduce various kinds of diversified economic activities. So there are many areas in which India is focusing. Another area is quantum computing. Because today data is becoming so much, the conventional computers will find it very hard to handle that data. And another challenge for us is when you build these data centers, they consume huge amount of power, megawatts of power. And the conventional computers also, they require a lot of power, and that can affect our environment. So therefore, can we come up with quantum computing solutions which are extremely fast but also consume less power? So quantum computing is another area in which India is focusing. But who will do all this research? We have some outstanding institutions such as the IITs, NITs, ISERs, and some research labs. But remember that there is a huge university ecosystem whose hands had to be strengthened, and the research ecosystem has to be enhanced if India has to become a scientific and technological powerhouse in the world. Right. And in order to achieve that, and in order to carry out research in many of these emerging areas that I have mentioned, we have now established what is known as the National Research Foundation.
Right.
And here, when we fund the educational institutions, mostly the university system, because the IITs and other institutions, they will continue to get their funding. But we had to put our attention on our university system. And when you do the research, we cannot leave it only to the educational institutions, because most of the research that we do now should have certain societal impact. It should serve the needs of the society. So therefore, how do we know whether it will meet the needs of the society or not? This is where we need to bring in the industry closer to the academia. There has to be closer industry-academia collaboration, and then the funding that goes to the universities has to be spent on problems which will bring solutions to the existing challenges that we have. So therefore, when this NRF starts functioning, when its SOP, standard operating procedures, are established, there will be a larger focus on funding the university ecosystem.
Right. I think the funding allocation is somewhere around 100 crores or something.
About 50,000 crores is what envisaged for NRF. Okay. And this year in the interim budget, they have assigned about 10,000 crores. 10,000 crores. Out of 50,000, it is expected that the industry will give about 30,000 crores. So it's a kind of collaborative work between industry, the academic institutions, and the government.
Great. I think I was about to ask you something on the India's innovative innovation ecosystem, but you've already answered that. So
because the innovation, the scientific developments that will happen are closely linked to the kind of research that is done in our educational institutions.
Right, sir. Because the concern is like still we are lagging behind when it comes to global innovation index and all those indexes which usually come out.
But I would like to add there that India today is the third largest ecosystem for startup companies.
Correct.
As we are speaking, we have, I think, more than 90,000 startup companies in our country. And we have several unicorns that are coming up in our country. So there is a lot of research, innovation that is happening in our country. And also, if you look at the quality of education that we are providing in our institutions, on one side, we do agree that we need to bring in a lot of innovations in our education system, but even our existing education system has produced global leaders, be it Google, be it Microsoft, be it World Bank. These are all led by our Indians who have come from our Indian educational system. But however, because ours is, that was maybe 30 years ago, 40 years
Correct, sir,
ago.
correct.
But today we have 300
Now
million
we have to look
students.
forward. I mean,
We
if
have
we
300
to
million
create
students
more,
in our education system, and that number is going to double. So therefore, in order to meet the aspirations of our young people, we need to bring in lot of innovations in our education system. So the perception that we are lagging behind in scientific innovation or technological breakthroughs also has to be seen in the right perspective. If you look at the number of universities or educational institutions from India which are getting into top 300, top 500 global rankings, even that number is increasing from year to
correct,
year.
correct.
We may not be there in the top 100 as yet, but a day is not far off when we will be there also.
Right, sir. Sir, my next question, relates to one of your areas of expertise. As someone who has been, deeply involved in semiconductor research and teaching,
Right.
so how do you assess India's, the semiconductor mission which we have launched and its potential, to foster growth and innovation in this industry? So how do you see it? Where are we currently?
You see, India can play an important role here in semiconductor technology. In semiconductor technology, in the mobile phone that you are using, in the laptop that you are using, there are a lot of chips, integrated circuits. So it has two components. One component is designing the chip, and the second component of semiconductor industry is realizing this design on silicon chip. So which involves a clean room, a front-end technology, back-end technology, where you do the fabrication of these transistors, billions of them you put on the silicon chip, you package it, and then you develop applications around those chips. So there are two components. Now, if you look at the first component, designing of the chip itself, it's a very complicated process, and it requires a lot of innovation, and Indians lead there. Today, nearly 25% of the chip designers are Indians, whether they are working in India or whether they are working abroad. Now, when you look at the chip making involves two kinds of systems. One is fabulous chip making. I am a designer. I develop all kinds of designs for specific applications, and then I send these designs to a foundry, and the foundry makes the chips and gives back to me, and I make the systems and then I sell them. And the other kind of making of the chips is you have certain companies which have capabilities right from designing of the chip to the fabrication, packaging, and selling of those chips. So you have both of them. So what India is doing now, and setting up of these fabrication facilities is also very, very expensive proposition.
Correct.
If you want to set up, let's say, a 45 nanometer foundry facility, it may cost anywhere from 50,000 to 60,000 crores. So it's very, very expensive. And maintaining such a facility also is very, very expensive. That is why when you look at the semiconductor industry evolution, you have today about half a dozen foundries across the globe in places like South Korea, in UK, in Europe, in Israel, in US. You have half a dozen foundries which do nearly 80% of the chip manufacturing. Now, what India is doing is, instead of reinventing the wheel, India has introduced several schemes. And under these schemes, we want to invite some of these big foundries to come and set up their shops here in India. And we have the human resources to run those shops, because India in semiconductor technology education, it started much earlier.
Right,
in early 1980s, we started VLSI design courses in IITs. And
Right,
that's
sir.
the
But I
reason.
think somewhere we missed the train.
In the fabrication
Yeah, in
area,
fabrication
we
area.
missed the train, but in the design area, we picked up. So we are far ahead in terms of innovations in chip design. So already we have seen in Gujarat, Micron company willing to establish, and there are many other companies which are showing their willingness to come and set up. You see, when these industries want to come and set up, they look at two, three aspects of the country. Is it a stable democracy, a
Right.
stable government? India stands out there. Does it have enough human resources? India stands out there. Is it too expensive to hire people? Again, India stands out there. Is there an educational system which will feed the human resources? Again, India stands out there. So there are so many positive aspects of India, and it is a growing economy, fastest growing economy, and you have aspirational youth in our country. So everything is there for large semiconductor corporations to come and establish their industries here. And I'm sure in coming years, India will lead in producing chips that will be shipped everywhere across the globe.
So, as you have spoken about, India's aspirations. So, how is University Grants Commission is adapting to keep pace with the transformation, particularly concerning higher education standards and coordination. So, how are you able to keep pace with that?
Well, NEP 2020 is there as a roadmap for us, and UGC has come up with 40 reforms in higher education so far.
Right, sir.
In the
I'll come to that, sir.
2 years.
Right.
So UGC is actually driving these reforms.
Correct.
Now, if we want to serve across the country in an effective manner, we have to set our own house also right.
Correct.
Within UGC, we need to make sure that our procedures are efficient, they are technology driven, and our staff are trained in order to enhance their competencies, in order to enhance their technology awareness, and how do you interact with the stakeholders? Do you provide the best service to them? So in order to do all these things, we have launched several programs within UGC itself to strengthen the capacity building of our staff. We have also signed up with the Capacity Building Commission of India to provide various kinds of training programs to our staff. Already during last 6 months, each and every of our staff, we have about 650 staff at various levels. Each one of them have taken on an average at least 6 courses from the Capacity Building of Commission of India. And we also call outside experts for face-to-face physical mode training in various aspects, for example, financial management or GFR or even, let's say, simple things. How do you use Word? How do you use Excel sheet for improving the efficiency of working? So several such things that we are doing within UGC itself.
I think it's an excellent initiative. I think
Right.
it's a unique way to look at improving things. First you improve yourself and then
Right. Because if as a good organization, if we have to function,
Right.
we also need to take care of our own individual staff members,
Right.
because they form the bricks of our organization. Their well-being also is important for us. Their physical, mental well-being, their career aspirations, all these things also need to be taken care of. And we are giving top priority to those aspects.
So NEP 2020 emphasizes on outcome based education. So, how is UGC, ensuring that the regulations are also aligned with this paradigm shift, and to prioritize outcomes over the processes?
Right, right. So, NEP 2020 emphasizes on three things. One is, as you said, learning outcomes based education,
Right.
and two, personalized education to the students, because students have different kinds of cognitive abilities and they also come from different socio-economic backgrounds. So, how do you personalize the education so that equity is there in our education?
Inclusivity is there.
Ah,
Right.
second one is personalized education. And the third one is providing learning outcomes based education and personalized education on a mass scale. These three are our objectives. So, in order to achieve the learning outcomes based education, we have now introduced what is known as the National Credit Framework across all domains: school education, higher education, vocational, and skill education. So, in the National Credit Framework, the central idea of National Credit Framework is to creditize all forms of learning.
Right. Sir.
Learning will take place inside the classroom, outside the classroom. Learning can take place in a physical mode or in online mode or in hybrid mode. Learning can take place, a person may study on their own without having to go to a school or college or a university. So, how do you recognize this prior learning, which is a non-formal learning, not a formal learning? So, in National Credit Framework, therefore, we are looking at all aspects of different modes of learning and how to creditize it. So, we have given a clear definition of what is the meaning of a credit. A credit is the fundamental unit for measuring the learning outcome and the time that the student spends in achieving this learning outcome. So, therefore, in school education now we have introduced 4 levels. Class 5th is level 1, class 8th is level 2, and class 9th and 10th is level 3, 11th and 12th is level 4. So, at every level we are saying a student has to acquire a minimum of 40 credits. So, by the time a student completes 12th standard, the student is expected to acquire 160 credits. And this is the first time in the world that we are introducing credits even in the school system.
Right.
And as the students move to the higher education, enter the college, the first year of the undergraduate will be level 4.5 and then they will move on to level 8. So, we are now therefore by saying what are the learning outcomes at every level and how many minimum credits a student has to earn, we are establishing a kind of equivalence. So, let us say a student has to move from one college to other college. Now, National Credit Framework provides a common platform based on which you can see the equivalence and allow the student to move from one college to the other college. Similarly, you can allow a student to move from vocational education to general education, or from general education to skill education, or from one discipline to the other discipline. So, you see that by introducing this National Credit Framework, we are bringing a lot of flexibility to the students. So, this is how the focus on learning outcomes based education is achieved by using this National Credit Framework as a model for us, as a framework for us. But as I said, it is a framework. Within the framework, the colleges and universities can innovate and design their own programs so that the expected learning outcomes are achieved.
So I think that's where the real challenge is, no? Because so many, it's the India is such a diverse country, and
Right.
there are so many universities and colleges. So you know, how do you see this change happening? Because people are still carrying out with the traditional. That shift in the mindset take place
Correct.
somewhere.
Correct.
So it becomes a very difficult task for, I think for UGC also, to
Right.
uh, take this forward.
So to add there, when we say that we are focusing now on learning outcomes, if you achieve that objective, then you can say that, well, there is a quality assurance, right? You have set a
Right.
goal for yourself and you have achieved it. So that means you are imparting the quality education to the students. But how will the educational institutions know that they are providing the quality education? And that is where the assessment and accreditation comes into picture.
Right.
So now we are bringing a lot of reforms in the assessment and accreditation also. Earlier we used to assess the institutions and give them grades. A plus plus, A plus, A,
Right,
B
sir.
plus plus, B plus B, and so on. And on a scale of 4, we used to give the scale, right? 3.53, somebody has got 3.53 score, 3.57 score, and like that. But in the process, what has happened, because of the perception that is created in the society, somebody got 3.54, I got only 3.52. There is some hesitation in the minds of the institutions to come for this assessment and accreditation.
Right.
So in the process, what happens is they are losing out on a chance to tell themselves that we are providing the quality education. Unless a third party measures and tells
Right, sir.
you are providing
Yes, sir.
quality education, you cannot really know, right? So in order to overcome this kind of perception challenge that institutions have, why should I project myself as a grade B institution when my neighboring institution is getting a grade A? So to remove that now, we formed, the Government of India, Ministry of Education has formed a committee under the chairpersonship of Dr. Radhakrishnan, the former ISRO chairperson.
Right.
And we were all there in that committee and provided all the inputs. And based on that committee recommendations, in the next 3-4 months now, what we are going to do, the National Accreditation Assessment Council, which is a body of Inter-University Center of UGC, it's going to introduce what is known as binary accreditation. So this binary accreditation will tell whether you are accredited or not accredited. And this whole process of giving binary accreditation will be based on a simple data-driven process. So now in the next level, once a lot of institutions will come now, because that negative perception of I am getting this grade, I am getting a lesser grade, that will be removed. You will be either accredited or not accredited. And over a period of time, in another year or so, we want to introduce a higher level of accreditation. So it is called maturity based accreditation, and we will introduce level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4 for excellence within the country, and level 5 for excellence globally also. So that accreditation, to achieve that accreditation, there will be a very data driven process, and it will not be so easy to get unless you achieve certain milestones as defined in the SOP that NAC will announce sooner. So to your question, how do we ensure that our institutions will provide learning outcomes based education? We need to incentivize them. One kind of incentivization is to introduce this binary accreditation, and once you are inside that your education is meeting certain minimum standards of providing the learning outcomes based education, you see that institution will have the confidence, okay, I have reached a certain level, now let me focus on becoming L1 level institution, and then next move to L2 level. So it's a progress that will happen over a period of time, and will ensure that a large number of institutions will come into the umbrella of institutions which have the capability of providing education with a focus on learning outcomes based education.
Wonderfully explained. I think there's a lot of confusion across the sector.
Right.
How, because thanks for clarifying that.
Right.
So finally, looking ahead, how do you envision the future of higher education in India? Particularly in terms of research, skill development, internationalization, and diversity,
Right.
including the diversity also.
Mm.
So how do you see a future where we take all this together to create an India which is a leader, which is Vishwaguru.
Right, right. So in the beginning of our interview, I said that if we want to build a developed country, we need to educate our students, the young students who are there in our country in millions. So when we educate our students using these modern aspects that we have embedded in NEP 2020, what are the three important things that we have embedded? For our students, we want to provide as much freedom as possible. We want to provide flexibility. We want to provide a lot of choices to them so that they can experiment within the given framework and become creative and innovative. And once that happens, once they come out of our educational institutions, they will contribute in various domains. It could be science, technology, public policy, media, politics. In all areas they will contribute because they now receive world-class education. Now, what is the impact of that? The impact of that is that India will become a nodal center for the entire globe in providing highly qualified human resources. You will see Indians across the globe contributing immensely, providing solutions to the global challenges all of us are facing today as a global community. So our Indians, our young Indians who come out through our educational institutions, which are transformed using NEP 2020, will not only develop our own country, but they will become ambassadors of our country across the globe. And a day is not far off when we see this transformation
Right.
of Indians leading across the globe.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing your invaluable insights on these very critical areas of education. And thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.